Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you in another video. Alright, I left a Laker video last night. Still feel very good about it. Encourage everybody to check out all that Laker content I've been leaving. Talking about the Lakers in the off season. It's not the easiest thing in the world because of course there's no games to be played. But with our circumstances, there's so much going on that you can find something. I only got 16 minutes to talk, so I hope I don't forget that and end up having to rush off. But it is what it is, man. The LA Lakers, to be honest with you, I'm just curious to know where they're going right now in regards to this job coaching position. You got the JJ Redick news that he did an interview with the team yesterday. I don't know how that went, but it seems like we're being patient. As I suggested they be in this situation, you don't want to rush because things didn't necessarily work out with Dan Hurley, so you automatically just hire JJ Redick. Maybe that's not what's best for this front office in regards to how they want to move. I think you'll ultimately land on JJ Redick, and with the draft coming up very soon, it might be in their best interest to do that. But if I'm JJ Redick, I'm probably asking for new negotiation terms to be in place with my representatives. You know, we need to up the money or up the years or have something that's a little more comparable to what Dan Hurley was getting, and then rather than whatever they were offering me. And that's why you don't rush from here. I think the Lakers may have made a mistake in regards to going after Dan Hurley, with that being what goes wrong when they do and don't get him. But I think it was worth it if you thought you could get him. But as far as whether or not it was the right move, if they never intended to hire Hurley, I don't think it was the right decision at all to go after Hurley in a fake out just so you can double back and get JJ Redick. Too much bad can manifest from making JJ feel like he's not your number one guy when he really is. I just don't think a whole lot of good comes from that. So that's what I want to say. I'm not really sure what the line of thinking was there. I don't know who told them or what the line of thinking was in regards to Dan Hurley possibly taking the position. But I think they created some headaches there by taking an unnecessary route. And sometimes when you do that, you regret it. So that's what I think the Lakers are ultimately faced with, is now having to manage what goes wrong when Dan doesn't take the job. And as we now know, the interview with JJ went well, but also one of the other guys on the list of people that they will interview is now starting to be courted by the Cavaliers. So, you know, it's a huge risk when you try to go after big fish. You let the whole world know it, and then you don't get them. You're creating now letdown, as we've already discussed several times. So, you know, I just think that the front office kind of creates headaches for themselves. And it's not something that you ever want to do when you have a time limit on things. Obviously, you got a lot of off-season left, but you do have a draft to prepare for, free agency to prepare for. And from what I understand, as soon as the finals are over, with the new collective bargaining agreement being as it is, you can now start negotiating with your free agents the moment the buzzer sounds at the end of the finals. So I think the Dallas Mavericks did the Lakers a favor by buying this some time, by winning a game, because that's one of those situations where, because you don't actually know when the finals is going to end, you don't actually really know when you can begin having conversations or when other people are going to start having conversations with your free agents. So that's a little tricky. Hopefully Dallas can buy us some more time by winning the next game so that we can prolong this a bit longer. But one way or another, all of this is going to be over with by the end of the week. So the Lakers need to kind of have some things in place, I'd imagine. And another point of view that I didn't really bring it to the table in regards to the importance of hurrying up and hiring a coach, is the fact that you are going to have your assistant coaching pool dry up. Your assistant coaching pool can now dry up while you're waiting to get a coach. You could also end up missing out on some of the better assistant coaches. But in that same breath, I think if you allow your coach to pick his own coaching staff, then that broadens the scope of who could be potentially out there. But I don't know who JJ Redick would want to hire. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not certain he wouldn't want to pick from the common pool, is what I call it, from assistant coaches, or maybe want to bring in some guys from a different avenue. Whatever the case may be, you run the risk of some good assistants not being available to you. So that's a big point that I didn't bring up that I think is very important, that I've heard others bring up. So, it's a lot to consider with the Lakers. But I think all in all, I like the idea of them moving up in the draft, so long as they're not overpaying to do so. But that's, as we mentioned yesterday, a risk that may not necessarily manifest to being what it's supposed to be. And what you don't want to do is put yourself in a position to misuse your assets any further. So if you're certain you can get your guy if you move up to 10 or something like that, how much certainty can you guarantee in a situation where drafts can go a lot of different ways? It can get really tricky. That same thing could be the truth when it comes to the other way around. Maybe you move up to 10 thinking you're going to get a certain guy, and you mess around and get the guy because of some slippage that could be possible in an uncertain draft like this. I did a mock yesterday, not online, but just one of my own personal mocks, after doing some extra homework on Alex Sarr, some extra homework on Ron Holland. And not that I think that this is what should be expected in any way, but I think there's a world where some things really get shaken up if the Atlanta Hawks don't take Alex Sarr or Reece Shea. And there's a world where the Atlanta Hawks trade their pick and somebody else wants Donovan Cleaner. Or they trade their pick and somebody else wants Ron Holland or something like that. Ron Holland, from what I understand, his value is starting to decrease. But I think what that report is starting to do is make people reevaluate Ron Holland. And I think that can immediately launch his overall prospect area back upwards. Because that's essentially what it did in my head. Once I started hearing, people are down on Ron Holland, I started doing homework on Ron Holland, and now I'm higher on Ron Holland than I was before. You see what I'm saying? So I think that that's legitimately possible when you have a player like that. I now, if I were to give y'all a mock today, I now have Ron Holland going to the Rockets at 3. Even though a lot of people would say, why the hell would they do that? They already have that type of player. But that's the point. That dude fits so well with what they already have, and the other prospects are more of what they already have or stuff that probably doesn't fit what they need. In other words, for the longest, I've had Reed Sheppard going to the Houston Rockets. But if you look at what Reed Sheppard is, he's basically Fred VanVleet light. Well, I would rather have another wing that can play defense and do all types of athletic things than another Fred VanVleet if I'm the Rockets. Now that I've done more homework on Ron Holland, it's like, well, they already have this and they already have that. So if they trade the pick, then obviously somebody's going to take whoever they're trading up to get, which is what I think is going to happen with the Houston Rockets pick. But if I can't make that trade and I'm in that Rockets area, I may bring Ron Holland in and then trade Jae'Sean Tate and Dillon Brooks. And now I have no drop-off with Ron Holland. The guy they drafted last year, Cam Whitmore. No drop-off with, what's that gentleman's name? Terry Eason. You have all of those guys who are interchangeable. They can play the 2, 3, and 4. And just always keep your team confident with athletic players who can dunk the ball like crazy, slash every which way, guard multiple positions, which you need. You going up against the Boston Celtics, Amen Thompson maybe gets in foul trouble. You still have Terry Eason. You still have Ron Holland. You still have Cam Whitmore to throw at all these guys that are going to be utterly hard to defend because of their ability to space the floor. So it's like, do I really need an undersized guard who maybe isn't a pure point guard just because he can shoot the ball really well? Or do I want another 6'8" wing that can fly all around if I'm the Houston Rockets? Well, to be honest with you, I'm going to quadruple down on more of what already makes up most of my team, so there's never any drop-off even if we get in foul trouble. So for me, I suddenly changed my mind about the 3rd overall pick if the Houston Rockets keep it. Give me another one of them dudes like Terry Eason, like Cam Whitmore, in Ron Holland. Because if I already got a point guard at every position, every size, I got a small point guard, I got a big point guard, I got, the ability to get other point guards with more picks. How often do your Cam Whitmores and Ron Hollands come around? Well, I'll tell you this, it's much easier to find another Fred VanVleet than it is to find another Cam Whitmore. And in Ron Holland, I feel like I have that. So if I'm the Rockets, it may be very redundant, but they also, with all of those young small forwards that they had, they also went and signed to in Green and Brooks. And they gave Brooks $80 million or whatever. That can come off of my books now that I know Cam Whitmore is ready to play a little further than maybe they thought. Now that I know that I'm probably going to be using Amen Thompson in more of those type of roles as well, I can bring myself Ron Holland, who could play the 2, the 3, 4, and maybe some 5 small ball if necessary, for which it would never be. Rather than just bring myself another Fred VanVleet, who may not actually be able to help me in certain areas, even though he does have two-way potential. He's only like 6'1". And so you guys know I really like Reed Sheppard. But if I already got Fred VanVleet on a $150 million contract, unless I plan on moving that at some point, I don't really need Reed Sheppard. And the problem with Reed Sheppard to a degree is he's not a real point guard, so I'm putting him at the 2. In these lineups, am I ever going to need him at the 2? No. Why? Because I got a million small forwards that can also play the 2. So it's like, if I'm going to double down on anything, I'm going to get more of what I already have, shave off some of those guys that are on contract who would otherwise be on a rookie contract if not for the presence of Ron Holland. Or Mateus Bruzelis if you don't want Ron Holland if you're the Rockets. But I'm probably going to take one of those 2 guys because at the end of the day, I don't really need a guard as much as I probably need to get up off of the Dillon Brooks contract. At $80 million eating up small forward positioning, it just doesn't make any sense for them. So if I'm deducing that they're going to keep their pick, which to be honest with you, I don't really even have a 50-50 idea that they will. I think it's more like 60-40 that they trade it rather than keep it. I think it's more likely they trade it. But I'm definitely going to draft a small forward because I think at the end of the day that a small forward in today's draft, in today's league, just holds more value than a short point guard. Even if they're Reed Sheppard's going to have to come in and prove he can play with these towers of players. And maybe you want to double down on the center position. Maybe it's in your best interest to take Clingan. But as I've listened to a lot of people who talk about this fit with Clingan and the Rockets, they don't really like the fit. They prefer to go in a direction that would allow them to either bring in Reed Sheppard as shooting or ultimately put themselves in a position to have a small forward like Ron Holland. So that's what I'm saying to you guys. I personally don't think the Rockets are going to keep the pick, nor should they try to. They should be doing everything they can in their power to get rid of that pick. But I also think they should do everything in their power to get rid of Dillon Brooks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Deshaun Tate is a free agent. But they still have Terry Eason. They still got Cam Whitmore. They still got Amen Thompson. They still got Green, I believe, who's probably going to retire very soon. So you can X him out if it makes you feel better. And I can bring in Ron Holland or Mateus Bruzelis and play that position that those guys are playing and shave all that garbage contract off of my books. Save that crap off of my books. So they don't need another project. Ron Holland's a project. But when you talk about building a super team, you want as many talented players on rookie contracts with bird rights as humanly possible. That's the God's honest truth. And so for my money, I'm going to bring myself another one of them dudes, and then I'm going to shop Dillon Brooks and do it that way. Because again, if I'm going to say let's bring in Reed Sheppard, then I probably want to get that big Fred VanVleet contract off my books. Problem is, I don't think Reed Sheppard is a pure point guard, and I don't think Amen Thompson should be playing the point guard in this league. No, probably not. Probably not. But if I bring myself Ron Holland, can you imagine how ridiculously defensive I'm going to be? And this is a Rockets team that's had issues with their team defense. Ron Holland, Terry Eason, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith. You don't have issues defensively no more. In fact, you probably vault to being one of the most difficult teams to defend, or rather to get around. So I like that for the Rockets. It's another two-way player that they can put in their situation. And I like it. I think Reed Sheppard, you can get away with Reed Sheppard. It's not like I'm completely out on Reed Sheppard going to the Rockets. I just feel like for me right now, I like one of those small forwards a little bit better, just simply because I think more players and more people on these teams want small forwards. I really believe that. I think when you start talking about the overall field, they're hopeful that they can get around these guards at the top of the draft, because most of these teams already have guards. So if you take a small forward, you're likely to be able to have a more valuable position, especially if it pans out. So that's what I think. Bigs and forwards are a bit more valuable in the NBA right now. Guys that are tweeners, that are only 6'1", your Rob Dillinghams and your Reed Sheppards, they have a lot to prove, man. They have a lot to prove. It's going to be very difficult for them not to be hunted out there. That's what it really comes down to. Defensively, they could be great, but at the end of the day, they're small. So you have to give up offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. They likely, as I said, get hunted. This is a lot of different things that really work against a guy that's only 6'1" or what have you. You got to do what you do and then likely sit down for a Ron Holland to come in and play your position. So I just think overall for the Rockets, I would rather take a small forward like Ron or like Buzelis, and if someone wants to make a trade with me, they're likely to want that piece more so than any of them guards. So I've run out of time. My name is BDO44, and I thank you all for watching, and I'm out.